friendly and very warm introduction. I do enjoy the Bhangra, and actually when we come to Trivandrum sometimes, in reality after lockdown is over, we plan to do something called the Malabar Bhangra, new dance form, and we have already conscripted Dr. Sanjay and Dr. Matthew John as part of our Malabar Bhangra team. First time in
Definitely, definitely. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. We'll talk today about insulin. These are my financial disclosures. But specifically in today's talk, we'll speak about how to initiate injectable therapy after oral drugs prove inadequate. We'll talk today about the status of diabetes in India, the core reality of diabetes management. Then we'll use a couple of case studies to actually explain how we should read the current guidelines and how we should extrapolate the guidelines to our clinical practice, to our Indian reality. We all know that diabetes is common in India. Yesterday in this symposium, we shared data from Kerala state in the ICMR INDIAB study. Data from Kerala shows that 40% of all adults are dysglycemic and 23% of all adults have type 2 diabetes or type 1 diabetes. So 40% is a huge number. We also shared data from Kerala state showing that the average HbA1c in people who know that they have diabetes, in people who should be taking good care of themselves, that's 8.2%. We get exactly similar data from studies all across the country. Fasting glucose is high, postprandial glucose is very high, and HbA1c is high. In spite of this reality, in spite of knowing so much about the disadvantages of poor glucose control, in spite of having the tools available to treat diabetes, we still are stuck at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 OADs. And all of us, including myself, we are all guilty at some time or the other of not initiating insulin in a timely manner. There are many reasons, many excuses. One of the reasons I have, which I would like to humbly submit, is that sometimes if you see the treating physician's prescription, do not view or do not criticize a physician's prescription from a cross-sectional point of view. Diabetes is a longitudinal disease. It's a chronic disease. So if there is a person who is, let us say, going to Dr. Zachariah or Dr. Matthew John today he has high glucose, he needs insulin. Dr. Sanjay or Dr. Matthew will not be able to convince the patient to take insulin in 1 minute. It is not always possible. So we may write multiple OADs. That is documented in the prescription. What is not documented is what we spoke to the patient about. That, madam, you need insulin. Let's talk about insulin. Please listen to me about insulin. It is also not possible to document the way in which you spoke. So let's try to document that maybe on the left side of our prescription that I have spoken about insulin to this patient. And if you view those prescriptions in a longitudinal manner, you will see that after a week or after 2 weeks or 3 weeks, the patient accepts insulin therapy. We may have lost a particular battle on one day, not being able to convince our patient to take insulin, but we will finally win the war. More often than not, in 90% of the times, 90% of our patients, this is what happens. Dr. Ashish Sehgal was speaking an hour or so ago in this conference today. So in Karnal, we have now more than one endocrinologist, we have 3. So our talk amongst ourselves is that if at the top of my prescription, I have written not willing for insulin, it means I have spent a lot of time talking to that patient about insulin therapy, but I was not able to convince him or her. If, however, I have written that on the left side of my prescription, it means that I have spoken to my patient, but I was not able to do detailed counseling. So if my patient goes doctor shopping and she goes to Ashish or she goes to Dr. Pramila, then they just continue with that conversation. So this way, we all speak the same language to our patients. And finally, our final aim is good glucose control. So we are able to achieve that. If not today, we'll achieve it tomorrow or day after. After having said this, even tomorrow or day after tomorrow, still we have patients who have high glucose levels, high HbA1c, and we just keep on giving them more and more OADs. But the more the number of OADs that you prescribe, the lesser the additional benefit that you have. It's just to the tune of 0.2 to 0.5% HbA1c reduction. If we give insulin, however, we can get almost limitless reduction in HbA1c. And this study in front of us shows that you can get an A1C reduction of up to 1.3%. Now, this is what we practice, but we face another challenge, and that is our diet, our carbohydrate-rich diet. In general, in India, we have diets with high glycemic load and high glycemic index. Dr. Neeta just spoke about diet. She spoke about keto diet and paleo diet. These are diets where carbohydrates are reduced to a minimum and proteins are increased. There are multiple challenges with keto diet. One of them is sustainability. The other one might be a risk of cardiovascular disease, a risk of dyslipidemia, a risk of hyperuricemia. But there is another issue that we should not forget, and that is cost, that is finance. Carbohydrates are cheap. Rice will cost 20 to 40 rupees a kg. Wheat will cost 30 to 40 rupees a kg. But if you want to buy vegetarian protein, you want to buy pulses, that is 200 rupees a kg. If you want to buy cottage cheese, that is 250 rupees a kg. Vegetarian protein would be something like 400 rupees a kg. So we have to keep that factor in mind as well. Once I went on a keto diet, I did lose 10 kg, but it all came back. So the friend who was taking care of me, he's a pediatrician actually. His name is Manish Dhawan, and he would prescribe avocado. Dr. Sanjay, you must eat avocado 2 times a day. So that was fine theoretically. But what Manish forgot to tell me was that avocado costs 1600 rupees a kg in Karnal. Even in Bangalore, where it is grown in Karnataka, there also it costs 1000 rupees a kg. So it is not something that you can continue forever. So we should bring our postprandial glucose down, and especially so in Indians and in Asians, because we do have a greater contribution of postprandial dysglycemia to overall HbA1c. We try tablets, we try secretagogues, we try alpha glucosidase inhibitors, but sometimes they prove inadequate. So then we need injectable therapy. Now, this is where I'd like to spend a minute on the Western guidelines and how relevant they are to us. According to Western guidelines today, we should be prescribing GLP-1RA as first-line injectable therapy to everyone. We do not have an argument with that. As long as our patient is stable, S for stable, then we might want to suggest GLP-1RA. The Western guidelines assume that the patient will come into your practice at an HbA1c of 7.5. He or she will be faithful to you. He or she will not go doctor shopping. He or she will listen to you, whatever you have to say. And as the HbA1c goes up, as the beta cell effect, the beta cell function comes down, we'll start GLP-1RA and things will be smooth. In reality, however, in India, I do not have many stable patients. My patients are either symptomatic, they are coming to me for symptomatic control, or they have severe hyperglycemia. They are coming to me for glucose control, and they want glucose controlled immediately. They will come and say, I have come to you today, I want glucose control with effect from yesterday, without following diet and exercise. Or my patients come to me because they are sick. They have an acute comorbidity or a chronic comorbidity. The acute comorbidity may be something like a frozen shoulder. It may be something like a pruritus vulvae or melanocystitis. It might be tuberculosis. They may have chronic complications, which may be metabolic, which may be vascular. Other patients will come to me in special situations, such as pregnancy, lactation, renal impairment, hepatic impairment. And some others come to me for surgery. They want preoperative control. And they say, I have just got 4 days window because my son has come from abroad. I want to get my cataract surgery done within the next 4 days. So in these realities, symptomatic, severe hyperglycemia, sick, special situations, and surgery, the Western guidelines do not work. It is not to say that they are at fault. Even in those guidelines, in very small print, you will see written that if you have a patient who is symptomatic, who has got weight loss, who has got osmotic symptoms, then you should start insulin. So that's what we are saying. Look at why your patient is coming to you, which kind of S category he or she falls into. Is it stable or is it what we are showing in front of us? And then you decide the injectable therapy. Also remember the glycemic sixer or the glycemic hexad. It is not only enough to control HbA1c in fasting and postprandial. We must also reduce the risk of hypoglycemia, nocturnal hypoglycemia, and glycemic variability. So we have to work towards action while ensuring caution. Now that we've got this basic philosophy in place, now it becomes easy for us to decide what kind of insulin therapy to give and when. Let's classify all our patients into early disease and progressed or prolonged disease, uncomplicated and complicated. People who need immediate resolution of hyperglycemia, people who do not need immediate resolution, people who may have a life-threatening, limb-threatening, organ-threatening, or quality of life-threatening comorbidity or complication. Let me repeat, a life, limb or organ threatening complication, or maybe a quality of life threatening complication, they will be treated differently. We'll consider them as progress disease. If this comorbidity can be benefited by reducing glucose immediately. Those who do not have such complications will follow the routine guideline kind of management. I use this model called SURE, S-U-R-E, to help me decide what kind of injectable therapy to give, what kind of regimen, what kind of preparation. So SURE stands for, S is for style and severity of hyperglycemia. U is for urgency and utility of glucose control. These two are action oriented. R and E are caution oriented. R is for risk of hypoglycemia. And E is for expectations and enthusiasm of the patient. Let's do it all over again. If the severity and style of hyperglycemia is such that it mandates aggressive therapy, then I will be aggressive. If the severity and style of hyperglycemia is not all that bad, then I will go slow. And we'll discuss this in the two cases that we have in front of us now. U is for urgency and utility of control. If I have a patient who is in DKA, obviously it is urgent situation. There will be utility in bringing glucose down. If I have a patient with a life-threatening abscess, then again I will do the same with pyelonephritis. But supposing the patient has carcinoma pancreas with metastasis in the liver, then there is not much utility in aggressive control. So I should go slow. R is for risk of hypoglycemia. If there are people with high risk, in high risk category, the elderly, those with renal impairment, hepatic impairment, gastrointestinal impairment, those who have hypopituitary, hypothyroid, hypoadrenal, then I will go slow. And E, the last E is for expectations and enthusiasm of the patient. The patient is the captain of the ship, so he or she will determine what kind of gear I pick up. So with this SURE background in our mind, let's look at Kamlesh. Kamlesh is an early disease diabetic. Having lived with diabetes just for a few years, the fasting is 160, that is high. The postprandial is 200. The postprandial excursion is only 40, 200 minus 160, which is 40. That kind of an excursion you will get in a normal euglycemic person as well. HbA1c is 8. BMI is normal. No comorbid conditions that we are aware of except for mild hypertension, which is very well treated with amlodipine, 5 milligram. So it's not a severe comorbid condition. So here, what does SURE and the 5S tell us? Number one, this is a stable patient. She is not symptomatic sick, in special situation, severely hyperglycemic, neither is she planned for surgery. She does not have a strong severity or any specific style of hyperglycemia. The style of hyperglycemia is more of fasting hyperglycemia, not too much of a postprandial excursion. There's not too much of urgency or utility in treatment. We have to bring the A1C down from 8 to 7. We can do it in a few months. The risk of hypoglycemia seems normal. Enthusiasm and expectations of Kamlesh that we have to ask her. But in such a patient, we will follow the guidelines and we will start with basal insulin. We may wish to intensify later on to premix or to basal bolus or basal plus. If we use analogs, that might be a good approach because the patient is working in a bank. She may have long sitting, long hours. She may not be able to take regular snacks. But suppose the same patient complains of diabetes for a longer duration. She complains of complications such as neuropathy. She has hypertension for the past many years. She has been taking atorvastatin. She is on dual blood pressure lowering therapy. She has an HbA1c of 9.6. The fasting is high. The postprandial is high. The postprandial excursion is 90 milligram %. And now we've seen that she has an organ threatening or a site threatening complication. That is diabetic retinopathy. Now look at the 5S category. This patient is symptomatic. She is severely hyperglycemic. She is sick. She is a special situation because of the retinopathy. And we also have to look for her kidney function. I am very sure if we were to delve into her kidney functions, we would find more than one abnormality. With all this, it makes sense for us to be a bit more aggressive. Let's look at the SURE model, SURE. The severity of hyperglycemia is high. The style of hyperglycemia throughout the day. U, urgency and utility. Certainly she has an organ-threatening or life-threatening complication. So it is urgent for us to bring glucose down. There will be utility also. We will be able to improve her symptoms. Risk of hypoglycemia, we have to assess. We need kidney functions for this. Enthusiasm and energy of the patient, expectations of the patient. She's a banker. I am very sure she's not able to work. She would really want her visual acuity to come back to normal. So I'm sure she'll cooperate with us. In such a case, what will we do? If we start with basal insulin, that will take a long time, and I do not think we will be able to bring the HbA1c down from 9.6 to 7. Just like 9.6 HbA1c cannot be brought down to 7 with a monotherapy oral, it cannot be brought down with insulin monotherapy. That means one type of insulin. So we need to give a combination. We can consider basal bolus, but that will be difficult for this lady. She's a working lady. So let's consider premix. If we start premix insulin, is there data to show that we can get good benefits? And the answer is yes. The patient does not view insulin as basal or premixed or basal bolus. A patient-centric insulin classification is number-based taxonomy. Kamlesh will want to know, Doug Saab, will you give me 1 injection per day or 2 injections or 3 or 4 or 10 per day? That is her understanding. So in 1 injection per day, insulin-naive patients were randomized to either Idagasp once daily or Glargine once daily. Idagasp was administered with the largest meal of the day. The patient could choose that meal. And Glargine was administered according to label at bedtime or at dinner. What we saw was that there was equally good control in HbA1c. There was better control in postprandial glucose with Idagasp after the major meal. And in spite of this better control, there was no increase in hypoglycemia. In fact, because of the reduction in postprandial glucose, we could get better HbA1c reduction with once daily Idagasp. Remember that Idagasp can be used once daily or twice daily both. But if you want to initiate, patient is not willing, not very keen to take insulin, you say, let's start with 1 injection. Let's see what happens later on. After a few weeks, if things are fine, we go on, continue. If things are not fine, we intensify the same preparation. Patient will not have to change injections. The risk of hypoglycemia is lower with once daily Idagasp, even though this is not statistically significant. But it does provide strength and confidence to us that we can achieve good quality control without causing HbA1c in a larger number of patients, 43% to be specific, with once daily Idagasp as compared to those with Glargine. The Indian guidelines, ESI RSSDI guidelines, also mention the same. And we say that what we say is that we should talk to our patient about insulin. Initially, I spoke about a longitudinal approach to insulin initiation. We call this the 3I approach. Inform, incubate, initiate. Inform your patient about insulin as soon as possible, early on in a timely manner. Let that idea incubate in the patient's mind, and then you initiate when required. Such an approach, the 3I approach, helps to reduce anxiety. It helps improve adherence to insulin therapy. And if your patient is not doing well on 3 tablets, it would be a good time to start once daily injection. In the same Kamlesh, we might have chosen basal if she was stable. But if she is sick, symptomatic, then we would rather choose basal plus bolus together, which is premixed or co-formulation. While prescribing insulin therapy, first choose the regimen. Secondly, choose your preparation. Third, think of the delivery device. You should have a patient-friendly delivery device. And fourth, think of the titration regimen that you would want your patient to follow. To summarize, we've spoken today about various aspects of diabetes care. We've talked of injectable therapy. We have analyzed Indian reality and we have juxtaposed it with Western guidelines. And we see that both have their own place. So depending upon what the patient has come to you with, what the patient's presenting complaints are they symptomatic relief or glucometabolic relief or long-term vascular metabolic benefit, you decide your injectable therapy. Based upon the SURE model, SURE, you decide how aggressive you want to be based upon severity and style, urgency and utility of glucose control, as opposed to risk of hypoglycemia and the patient's expectations and enthusiasm. Do not forget that we live in India, we are a carbohydrate-loving nation, and our postprandial glucose levels are high. Always keep that in mind while choosing the appropriate insulin therapy for your patients. But if you want overall control and you want to have a glycemic fixer, then it would be a good idea to have drugs which control both fasting and postprandial glucose while having low risk of hypoglycemia. So thank you, and it's been real fun being part of this webinar today. I'd like to thank Dr. Matthew John personally. I'd been listening to all the talks, I'd been listening to the question and answer Dr. Nita was handling very well. And it's really nice being part of such an educational venture. Thank you.